A baseball season can unwind like a fantastic story, usually different than the last or next. If you go back exactly 100 years, you'll find perhaps the greatest baseball season ever recorded. In this BirdChatter video, we are going to turn back the clock 100 years to 1920. 1920 was a very busy year in America. Not just in baseball, but in politics and the entire social landscape of our country. Off the field, after several decades of social push, the 19th Amendment was added to the Constitution, giving women the right to vote. Led by Nassau, a feminist movement whose goal was to push for ratification and force Congress to approve an amendment declaring women's rights. A social push for several decades, it came to a head during the 1920 summer. Meanwhile, race riots were fueling some inner cities. Industries were trying to keep workers from unionizing. They were directly marketing blacks from the South to come up and replace union workers for less wages. At least that seemed to be the excuse that was used to fuel a lot of the riots. This included many shootouts in cities like East St. Louis and Knoxville. Black American soldiers, who were embraced all around the world during World War I, became completely intolerant of the racism and treatment that they received when they returned to their homeland. These were not peaceful protests. They were more like extermination exercises. In some cities, entire neighborhoods were burnt down. Then there was another issue to deal with. The Sedition Act of 1918, enacted during World War I, made it a crime to willfully utter, print, write, or publish any disloyal, profane, or abusive language about the government of the United States. That included the reporting of a possible pandemic that seemed to be sweeping the nation as well. The result was a global catastrophe, with hundreds of thousands of Americans dying quietly, and uncountable millions globally. Add to that post-traumatic stress from World War I, and the recovery from the fear created from the most horrific plague in our nation, the swine flu of 1918, had our entire nation in turmoil. The new Industrial Revolution spelled change, and big change was coming. The boys were coming home from World War I, and in music, ragtime was replacing Western folk and Eastern opera as the sound of the nation. And the blues had just had its birth in the Delta. As for baseball, the first century merging of the National and American Leagues went as well as expected, with the New York Giants being the champions. Baseball had its first hero, pro sports first superstar Christy Mathewson. With good looks, charm, a college education, and effective, unmatchable pitching, Christy made World Series history and led baseball into a new era. Putting Mathewson's face on a card for the fans revolutionized baseball and sparked a new industry, the baseball card. The New York Giants were the darling team of America's biggest city. Manager John McGraw was the winningest manager in the game, and his champion Giants started drawing big crowds everywhere they played, especially on days Christy pitched. Mixed into the cigar-smoking tough guy crowd, baseball now had a star that drew the ladies to the ballpark, and eventually families. New York was a divided place at that time, from Harlem to Queens, Brooklyn, and the Bronx. Yet all that was from Manhattan was all good. Baseball was the talk of the town, and the Giants were number one. By the late teens, the league would be successful, but failing to grow at the projected pace the owners envisioned. Not too easy when its two biggest stars were an aging quiet infielder from Pittsburgh named Honus Wagner and the meanest, most hated and feared competitor, T.W.I.B from Detroit. Certainly two of the greatest baseball players ever, just not the outside draw that Mathewson was.
The Flying Dutchman of the Pittsburgh Pirates, Honus Wagner. At shortstop, Wagner had no peer, and at bat, he used the great strength of his forearms to win 8 batting titles in 12 seasons. Wagner also led the league in stolen bases 5 times. Just 5'11", Honus weighed more than 200 pounds, and though not graceful, he was the most complete ball player of his time. This famous split grip belonged to baseball's all-time batting leader, T.W.I.B. The accomplishments of the Georgia Peach are as impressive today as they were more than 50 years ago. In the course of his 24 years, Cobb set major league records for games played, base hits, runs scored, and stolen bases. And his lifetime batting average of .367 is the highest in the game's history, and more than 100 points above the entire league's average during the same period. Cobb's genial appearance belied a fiercely combative nature. He had few friends in the game, but no one denied his greatness. Staunch competition came from the Boston Red Sox' Tris Speaker, who played the shallowest but most complete center field of the day and compiled a .344 lifetime average.
Rumors of gambling and illegal betting were circulating inside the game. Every creative way to market the game and boost attendance was being tried by the owners. One owner in particular, Charlie Comiskey of the Chicago White Sox, seemed to be on top. With his new ballpark, he assembled the best team in baseball, finishing out the decade. The White Sox, managed by Kid Gleason, were the 1917 World Series champions. Then they lost the World Series to the Cincinnati Reds in 1919, a team they should have beaten easily. Skepticism sparked right away about a possible fix in the World Series. Gambling in baseball had been an ongoing, ever-growing problem that may have reached the Fall Classic. Heading into 1920, the Reds were champions of the world, and the White Sox claimed they were set this year to get their crown back as baseball's champs. They were looking forward to getting their revenge on Cincinnati in the World Series. More hype was built for the upcoming season of 1920 than any season prior. But rumors of controversy were getting louder about a scam in the 1919 World Series. The Boston Red Sox, who had won several championships, were broke and owed money for their new stadium, Fenway Park. So they let 2 of their best players go. Tris Speaker had left Boston and signed with Cleveland to be player manager, and as one of the league's top sluggers, got his Indians into the pennant race. On January 5th, the New York Yankees officially announced the purchase of Babe Ruth from the Boston Red Sox. The disgruntled pitcher had been unable to reach a contract agreement and was eventually sold to Colonel Jacob Rupert for $100,000, plus a loan collateralized by Fenway Park. Later that season, his .376 batting average and record-setting, mind-blowing 54 home runs and 137 RBIs would generate an attendance of 1.2 million fans in his first year and lead to the construction of Yankee Stadium. With 54 massive swings of his bat, he knocked the dead ball era into absolute oblivion. Another team in New York was trying to figure out their identity and work to continue getting their team out of the dump. Written off as a lucky first-time trip to the World Series, Brooklyn was trying to get back there and take over the claim as New York's new best. They were called the Robins after their manager, Wilbert Robinson. Searching for a name and identity, Brooklyn knew two things. They had to beat the Giants, and they had the pitching to do it. In Brooklyn, streetcars could leave fear in those who crossed the streets. They said you had to be a trolley dodger if you were from Brooklyn. The team was quickly known as the Trolley Dodgers, or as some called them, the Dodgers. As the nation was going through great changes, Major League Baseball was implementing new changes as well. Changes were being made to the game, and purists were not happy about it. Judge Kenshaw Mountain Landis would be a name brought up during the 1919 offseason as a possible baseball czar to be brought in to rule over the game. Landis's name first came to the forefront thanks to another Red Sox-turned-Yankee pitcher, Carl Mays. Intensely, surely, yet very proficient, Mays stormed off the field during a game in 1919, vowing never to pitch again for a Red Sox team he felt gave him no backbone. When American League President Ban Johnson nixed the effort to place Mays in Yankee pinstripes, the team sued and won. The controversy brought into the open the hatred some AL teams had for Ban Johnson and his dictatorial powers. A series of meetings to discuss the Mays matter got so heated it nearly split the AL apart, with three teams, New York, Boston, and the Chicago White Sox, threatening to join the National League. The National League had already thought up the idea of a non-baseball man, an outsider with no direct ties to any ball club, to be the game's commissioner. Landis was on a wish list of names that included former President William Howard Taft. Ban Johnson already believed he was the man, but the AL's founding father didn't fit the National League's ideal profile, since he held stock in several American League clubs, which, not coincidentally, made up the minority of clubs trying to restore the power Johnson had lost as a result of the Mays controversy. And so the league went into the 1920 season with essentially no one with the authority to lead it.
From BirdChatter, I'm Mike Allen. Subscribe to our channel for all our compilation videos, and you can see all of our artwork we use by visiting us on Pinterest.